Great, so today we're going to talk about completing the square. We're going to use it to solve quadratics. So we're going to review, first of all, what a perfect square trinomial is, and then we're going to talk about how to solve a quadratic by completing the square. Now, if you were in my geometry class last year, we did a lesson on this after the SOL. So let's quickly review. A perfect square trinomial is a trinomial that is this form a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. And it can be factored into a plus b and a plus b, or a plus b squared. Okay. When it's a minus in here, it's going to be the same thing, but a minus b squared. Okay. So if I look at these two trinomials, this is a perfect square trinomial. The square root of 4x squared is 2x, okay? And the square root of 25 is 5. If I multiply these, it gives me 10x, and if I double it, it gives me 20x, so it gives me that. So this can be factored into 2x plus 5 and 2x plus 5. When I look at this, the square root of 36 is 6, so a is b. I should have done that maybe, and b is 36, or 6. When I multiply 2ab, it's 2 times 6 times b, which gives me 12b. So while this can be factored, it can't be factored using a perfect square trinomial. Now the reason these are important is because we're going to use that relationship to complete the square. So when we're completing the square, just take a minute to read this. You're going to move the constant to the opposite side by itself. So you're going to have all the variables on one side, the constant on the other. You're going to have to take half of your b, so it's going to be in the form ax squared plus bx equals a constant. Okay, so we're going to take half of whatever this is, and we're going to square it, and we're going to add it to both sides, so it would look like ax squared plus bx plus b squared equals c plus b squared. Okay, and then this factors to well, the square root basically of ax plus b and squared. All right, so that's going to allow us to solve that. All right, so what we're going to do, we've already got the constant moved to the other side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take half of 4 and I'm going to square it. So half of 4 is 2 and I square it. Since I add it to this side, I have to add it to the other side. Okay. So I get x squared plus 4x plus 4 equals 25 plus 4 is 29. Then I'm going to factor this so that I get x plus 2 squared equals 29. If I take the square root of both sides, that will give me x plus 2 equals, and we have to consider both the positive and negative square roots, positive or negative 29. Right. And then I would just subtract 2 from both sides so that I would get x equal to negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 29. And that's how I want you to leave your answer, in radical form. Simplest radical form, but we can't simplify 29 at all. All right, next example. I don't have the constant on one side by itself, so I've got to subtract 9 from both sides. And I'm going to get x squared plus 6x. I always leave a space if I've got to do that step. Minus 8. Okay, equals negative 8. If I take half of 6, that's 3, and I square that, it's 9. So plus 9, plus 9. So half of 6 is 3, 3 squared is 9, and I'm going to add it to both sides. This side factors to x plus 3 squared equals 1. And now I take the square root of both sides, and I get x plus 3 equals positive or negative 1. And now I can write two equations. X plus 3 equals 1, and x plus 3 equals negative 1. If I subtract 3 from both sides, I get x equals negative 2. If I subtract 3 here, x equals negative 4. Okay. And there are my solutions. Got two more examples. In this case, I've got to add x to both sides, or subtract x from both sides. And I get x squared minus 4x equals negative 1. Okay. If I take half of negative 2, or negative 4, it's negative 2, and negative 2 squared is 4. And I got to add 4 to both sides. Okay. This will factor to x because it's negative or minus 4 in here. It's going to be x minus 2 here squared equals 3. And now I'm going to take the square root of both sides. So I'm going to get x minus 2 equals positive or negative root 3. And then I just add 2 to both sides. So I'm going to get x equals 2 plus or minus root 3. And there are my two solutions. 2 plus root 3 and 2 minus root 3. All right, so when we're completing the square, we want our x squared term to have just a 1 in front of it, a positive 1 in front of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide everything in the equation by 3 so that I get x squared plus 8x minus 20 minus 9 equals 0. 0 divided by 3 is 3. Okay, so if I move the 9 over, I get x squared plus 8x equals positive 9. If I take half of 8 is 4, and I square it. Okay, so I get x squared plus 8x plus 16 equals 25. Now this factors to x plus 4 squared equals 25. If I take the square root of both sides, I'm going to get x plus 4 equals positive or negative 5. And I can write my two equations. X plus 4 equals 5. X plus 4 equals negative 5. So I'm going to get x equals 1. And if I subtract 4 here, I get x equals negative 9. So what have we learned today? We reviewed what a perfect square trinomial was, and then we've learned to use it to solve a quadratic by completing the square. Have a math-tastic day.